What's up guys, Xell here, and today I'm going to be talking about my preparation going into Nationals, the spicy tech card that I used at Nationals, and how my overall run went at the tournament. So let's get started. So I'm just going to talk about my mindset going into the tournament and what sort of things I was thinking about, and I'm just hoping that this is helpful for other people who are watching this and want to prepare for their own regional tournaments. I think for a lot of people it can seem obvious to just go ahead and play the best deck in the format, but I actually think there's a lot of considerations, especially in One Piece. I think this is especially true for this game because I think matchup knowledge and just general deck comfort is so important. Playing a tier 2 deck that you are super comfortable on, know all the matchups, is going to get you way further than just blindly playing a tier 1 deck and just hoping that you do well with it. So when it came time to consider the decks that I would bring to Nationals, of course I went to my comfort picks. For me, I've always been super comfortable on the yellow decks. In OP03, I had played Katakuri towards the end of it, and then going into OP05, I played a lot of vanilla, and I've had really good success on both of these decks. That said, I know I just got done talking about not just blindly picking a top tier deck, but I think it is hard to ignore the fact that Sakazuki is the best deck in the format. And I had a couple weeks leading into the tournament, so I want to see if I can get comfortable on it enough to comfortably play it at the tournament. And if not, you know, I always had the yellow decks to fall back on, and those decks are perfectly fine in a regional setting. The other reason why I really wanted to learn Sakazuki is that I would be going into the tournament without those 2-round buys that some of the other players would have. And so I really wanted raw consistency and a good matchup spread. And the other decks that I considered oftentimes had like a matchup that you wanted to avoid. And I just felt like Sakazuki is just so consistent, and that's the thing I valued most here. The other big consideration to think about when picking up Sakazuki is just the fact that I would be playing this deck for hours on end on the day of the regional. I mean, you're guaranteed to play at least 9 rounds at a regional, and so it's just going to be a huge mental load to take on for the entire day, especially on a deck like Sakazuki where you have a lot of decisions to make, and a lot of these small micro decisions can add up to, you know, either you winning the game or losing the game. Luckily, I think in the few weeks I had before the tournament, I was doing quite well with Sakazuki, even at a local level. You can actually check out my deck tech that was put up on the Supa Playas channel when I won their first anniversary tournament. Got the cool little Luffy. You can actually see the spicy tech card that I'm going to talk about later in this video there, and I'm going to talk a little bit more detail about it. Going over the list that I eventually went with for Sakazuki, I think, you know, in the end, most of these Sakazuki lists are exactly the same. The only real difference is, of course, in the sort of tech cards. Like, you get like 5 tech cards that you can bring in and change the deck to, you know, favor certain matchups. And I think with OP05, the meta is actually pretty narrow. There's basically 4 main decks that I think are going to be heavily represented in OP05 tournaments, which is 1, of course, Sakazuki, 2, Purple Luffy, Katakuri, and of course Xell. So I think I was just trying to prepare for those 4 decks, and luckily Sakazuki already kind of naturally preys on Purple Luffy, so I wanted to make sure that my tech cards were for the Sakazuki mirror and for yellow decks. So, like many other Sakazuki decks, I ended up running the 3-cost Blue Hina. I think that card is very, very good. Being able to play it on curve going first and having a body on board to prepare for a Hound Blaze is just a lot of value and a lot of tempo, and I really highly value getting that early body on board. And then my other card that I brought in, which is my spicy tech card, is the 10-cost Kuzan. Yeah, I think this is a bit controversial maybe, because the other 10-cost card that I think a lot of people are wanting to play is the 10-cost Kaido. You know, and 10-cost Kaido is I mean, it's a big card. It's a 12k body, and it draws you 4 cards. And Sakazuki, I mean, like, you want to draw those cards so badly, because that is truly its only weakness, is that when you run out of resources, your cards don't really do anything. But that said, I think that the 10-cost Kaido is actually kind of a trap. I don't know. That might be a hot take, but I know some people have been talking more about the card and saying, you know, maybe we should be moving away from it. And I tend to agree. I think the card is a little awkward. I find that most of the times when you play it, you have to be in a state where you're just super safe. Otherwise, you're just kind of playing it and YOLOing and hoping that you have the counters to defend yourself. It doesn't impact the board right away. And so I just think it's one of those cards that feels more win more, and more often than not in the Sakazuki mirrors that I had played, like people are just pitching it because you just don't get the time to actually, you know, have the space and safety to play it. And so this is where I really like 10 cost Kuzan, because 10 cost Kuzan, okay, same thing, it costs your entire turn to play, but it affects the board immediately. And while you don't draw the 4 cards that Kaido does, it does supercharge the rest of your deck. Your Lucci start popping basically anything. I mean, it just, as soon as 10 cost Kuzan hits the board, everything just dies. And basically at that point, your opponent is on a timer because they will not have any cards stick for the rest of the game. Now, to really enable 10 cost Kuzan on my deck, I went up in the 4 cost Kuzan because he's such a great setup card to then build into the 10 cost Kuzan, because, you know, there's a bunch of 7 drops and other, you know, big cards that are being played in the current meta, especially with against the yellow decks. And that's where 10 cost Kuzan shines the most, because they do not have removal for that thing. If you don't swing it with 10 cost Kuzan, they literally cannot get rid of it on board. And once you have that 10 cost Kuzan, oh, it's you know, it's open season for their cards. Like everything just dies. And so I love that card in that matchup in particular. And even against Sakazuki, I really like it in the mirror as well, because, you know, you play it, you pop a Lucci or whatever, and then from then on, all your Luccis from there just blow up everything on their board. And it's hard for them to remove the 10 cost Kuzan too, because it is a 10 cost. And so yeah, I just really like the card. I think it's quite good, and I think it's worth looking at. So yeah, anyways, that's the final list that I ended up taking into nationals. Going into it, my confidence wasn't actually super high, because I still felt like there was a lot of lines that I could have still explored, and a lot of things that I could still learn from certain matchups. And so I was just kind of hoping that, you know, my luck would be good that day and I would play into the matchups that I'm most comfortable with. And you know, what can you do at that point? So let's talk about my tourney run, and I'll go over the different opponents that I had and how those games went. So on my Twitter, I posted my tournament thread and just talked a little bit about each round. So yeah, also follow my socials. So this is a good reminder. But anyways, round 1, I played against the Sakazuki mirror. I ended up going second, and I was able to just stick a Tenzen. And honestly, from there on, it's game over. I was able to demolish his board. He never got anything started, and it was a quick, easy victory from there. Round 2 was Xell, and this was interesting. He won the dice roll, but chose to go first. This allowed me to play my Tenzen on curve, and from there, I was able to answer everything. Like I remember talking to him and just being like, yeah, I got rid of like 6 of your top end, and he just ran out of gas, and I just stuck behind my blockers, and that was it. So anyways, going to round 3, I was feeling really good. The fact that even though I didn't have a 2-round bye, I still was, you know, going to round 3 at 2-0, which I felt like that was really good. Round 3, I play in the Saka mirror. He won the dice roll, but chose to go first, which is interesting. I don't know if I agree. I know some people, you know, even in the people I play with, like, have talked about going first in the Sakazuki mirror, and I think there is potentially some logic to it, in that there is a curve where you go first and you can do a lot of good damage. You know, you go like 3-drop Hina into like Black Hina into Hound's Blaze into Borsellino into Mihawk into whatever. I still think that the second curve generally favors Sakazuki, because that extra card matters a lot. Just having that more Dawn available to you is just better. But you know, that said, I think that the mirror is close to, no matter how you slice it, so whether you go first or second. But this game, he really did not get that like odd curve that I talked about, and I was able to just tear his board apart. I had more Luccis than them, was able to play more Luccis. I think I had 3 to their 1, and I just demolished them. Round 4 was another Xell. I lost the dice roll again here, but again, strangely enough, he chose to go first. So yeah, I don't know. At this point, I felt really confused, and this is where like my lack of confidence going to the tournament, I was like, do just people know something that I don't? I felt very strange over it, because when I played Xell, I liked going second generally. So yeah, anyways, I played against the Xell. He was a Big Mom variant of the Xell, so I could kind of more see why you would take first, because you have that really good odd curve with the Big Mom package, with Pudding into Perospero into Gadatsu into 7-drop either Xell or Mom. Like, I can see it. But this game, he really didn't curve out quite like that, and I was able to just pick apart his board over and over. And after the game, it was funny because he said like, oh, that was kind of a low roll game, and I wasn't exactly sure what he meant by that. And then later on, thinking about it, I was like, well, he got a lot of triggers in life, so I'm curious what he meant by low roll. And then round 5 was my first loss of the tournament. This is when I ran into a Whitebeard player who I guess goes by Water. I forgot his real name, but he's a regular at Core TCG. He's a very good player, has topped a bunch of regionals. It was a really close game, and it got down to the final 3 cards in his hand. Of course, he's Whitebeard, so he's at 0 life, and I'm just trying to figure out lethal. And I think I actually misplayed my final attack, which was kind of a bummer thinking back onto it. And again, this is just one of those things where, like, you know, the difference between a win and a loss can be a razor's edge, and this was definitely that. He had 3 Dawn open, 3 cards in hand, and this is where I should have remembered that he had one of those 3 cards was not an event. It was a Sanji from the 3 captains deck, so it's just a 1k, right? So at worst, he can only have Rad Beam, and a 1k. And this is where I just kind of messed up because I had a Borsalino attack the 7 cost, and I should have attacked not for 10k but for 11k to try to force both the Rad Beams on that attack, and that would have left some Dawn for my 4 cost Borsalino to attack 7k, and he would be left with that Sanji card in hand. So thinking back on it, I just did the combat math a little wrong. I swung 10 thinking like I would guarantee get 2 cards out of his hand, but I should have remembered that it was a Sanji in hand. So kudos to him, and it was yeah, really close. Round 6, I played into Katakuri, and this was definitely a matchup that I'm not comfortable in. Going into the tournament, I tried to play Katakuri, the matchup where I just try to play super control and slow and just play around Thunderbolt and Amaru as best I can. But the thing is, like with Katakuri, eventually, if you give him enough chances, he just will get to a point where he can lethal you. And yeah, this was a game where like I was aggro, but then I like was really scared about potentially being Thunderbolt Amaru, and so I played around that for a long time, and I kept giving him chances to draw into, you know, more and more threats. And I think that was wrong. I think against Katakuri, you just play tempo, you play aggro, you just try to win the game as fast as possible. I'm pretty sure. I don't know. I didn't get enough time to test it, and this is a game where I luckily did not get punished for my lack of practice, but you know, so it goes. Round 7, I won the dice roll into a purple Luffy player, and this game was really close. It came down to the final turns of the game. He needed to find some way of either getting a 9-cost Kaido like rush card on board for an extra swing, or something like a Sheep's Horn to tap down my blocker to go in for the win. And it was just lucky that in his last life and on his top deck, he did not draw either of those cards, and so I was able to eke out a win there. In round 8, I played against another purple Luffy, and this time I lost the dice roll, but he kind of played into me in a way that I think was advantaged for me. On my 3-down turn, I played a Tashigi out, and on his turn, he played the ulti page 1 combo, which normally is a good combo, but when I have ulti out, it's very trivial for me to get the down minus in order to Lucci both of those things. And from there on out, like I just get a huge advantage into tempoing him out. And that game also, I was able to land a Tenzan and just fully lock him out. I was so safe. I think when I played my Tenzan, I was still at like 3 life. That's how safety I had playing that card. And then round 9, I played the Sokka Mirror. I won the dice roll, and this game was just pure destruction. I just was able to tempo him out from the get-go. I had the early bodies. I had the early Hound Blaze for tempo. He was at like 0 or 1 life, like super early on. Like maybe by the time I hit like 8 Dawn, like it was crazy how much he was just like taking life. And from there on out, it was just impossible to dig himself back up from that tempo loss, and was able to just steamroll. And then round 10 was the last round, unfortunately, for the tournament. If you guys want to see what went wrong at the event, I have another video talking about why the event was run very poorly. But I played against another Katakuri, which I was a little bit dreading. I lost the dice roll, which made it even worse. But the game actually was going towards my favor. He wasn't able to, you know, establish a lot of bodies, and mostly spent his time swinging really big into my life, which I don't mind into Katakuri, because being lower in life against yellow means that some of their cards are less effective. But But at the very end, I chose a line that left me with 4 Dawn in order to play Borsalino to be like my last line of defense. And I thought I was safe because it plays around Thunderbolt, and he had just already used 2 Amarus, and they were in his discard pile. So I was like, what's the chance he has a 3rd one? And of course, he has the 3rd one. He said he had it in his hand the whole time, and I was like, God damn it. I wish I played around Amaru a little bit better there, because I did have a line thinking back where I could have played Rebecca, brought back a Kobe to blow up his Cracker that was on board, and then I would have a Rebecca and a 4-cost Borsalino on board to, you know, be my blockers for that turn. So he would have to have like 2 cards instead of just the Amaru to get through my board, and I think that would have been a better line, but it is what it is. It was a long day, and again, this is just one of those things where the difference between a round win and a round loss is on a razor's edge always, and so in the end, I can't really complain. I think a lot of things were pretty fortuitous for me, and the fact that I got top 100 at this event, I got 80th out of like 2,000 people is still a great accomplishment, and I'm hoping just to do better at these next tournaments. And I just really love this game, and it was cool to see that my, you know, like I've been putting a lot of time into the game, and it's cool to see my effort be paid off. So anyways, I hope that this video was helpful for other people who are entering their big tournaments, the regionals in their area. And for Sakazuki players out there, I'm telling you, I really am a believer in the 10-cost Kuzan. Try it out, see how you guys like it, and let me know. So anyways, with that, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.